Some teams use Trello with some card views and so on. Some teams use Mingle. I'm not sure if language engineering still does, but somebody can correct me. We have an RT instance, which is mostly used by the operations team. We have Garrett for code review, and we have lots of tools in between that try to sync some data or send notifications from A to B to make these things work together. So what we did in the end, we had a request for comment running for the last 3 weeks, asking people to test our instance of Phabricator on labs, and asking for feedback. This is again the description, what we've done. These were the steps we did before here, like asking people what they need. We summarized requirements. So we're now at the RFC stage. And this page also tells you like how you can help on the right by adding your ticket in our Phabricator test instance. So we do some dog food, so everybody has to try it. For features specific users of specific current tools are missing, which has been very helpful and very active and constructive so far. Yeah, and here you see the people down there in favor of Phabricator, basically neutral, and some discussion of it. And we also have some pros and cons here. Just want to say we also have an FAQ, which still any kind of editing or adding stuff is appreciated because there's like 3 or 4 to-dos left in there. Phabricator itself, this is the instance on fab.wmaplabs.org. So I guess there will be a bit more of an introduction of all the tools because I have mostly focused on Manifest, which would be the replacement for Bugzilla. But you see that you can reach the different tools here on the left. You have notifications here. You have a timeline, and this is basically your start view for everything. Yeah, and we have boards. That's stuff that Bugzilla, for example, doesn't have, but that's like in Trello and Mingle and so on. So you don't only have a status for a ticket, but also you can drag cards from one column to the other one. So we used a board in our Phabricator test instance for the RFC, kind of collecting what we need to sort out for the RFC, deciding what's critical for the RFC itself. And as the RFC is closed now, we're also pretty much clean on that side. So everything left is under the not critical for the RFC column. As we try to be good citizens in free software, we're also upstreaming stuff to the Phabricator is on our side. But we also have a Wikimedia project now in upstream where you can see like tickets in the upstream Phabricator bug tracker that are relevant for our use case in Wikimedia if we or when we want to adapt Phabricator. And everything that's not critical for the RFC that we just finished, we're now having on the board, which is called Wikimedia Phabricator Day 1. So these are the things we have to sort out before we really go live with a production instance. As we mostly, or the plan is to concentrate first on Bugzilla, Trello, Mingle, RT. For the code review side, which is currently Garrett, things are a bit more complicated, what we need. So this is an area where we need a bit more of attention still and got to work out things. Oh yeah, and as we have a few blockers defined, these are just examples for stuff we still need to sort out. For example, restricting the access level of all tasks in a certain project. That's, for example, the case currently in Bugzilla for security, where we handle security vulnerabilities that shouldn't be, by default, public. And it's similar for RT, that some stuff like the procurement queue, that this should not be public by default. So that's one example to still sort out. And as I mentioned with code review, for example, this is a pretty, let's say, popular discussion For example, using differential, the tool in Phabricator with plain Git and not with Arcanist. That's basically all I had in mind so far. We might have a walkthrough a little bit of more. Yeah. Well, thanks. And you're free to go ahead or however you would like to do this. Yeah, and I'm very thankful that you volunteered for this.
We should put this. Do we need to put this on air so people can see it? On screen?
Yeah, if you want to do it from your laptop.
As you like.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess VGA.
So I'm gonna unplug so you can use it.
So any questions so far? Comments before now we go to a little demo. Okay.
Did I forget anything?
What's your idea of risk with some of the blockers? Like, how risky are the blockers not being fixed before we want to migrate?
Well, defining blockers as real blockers, we must sort them out before, and that's also how we define blockers currently.
I think the question is like, what are the changes that we'll spend like half the time and then realize, hey, we can't actually get past that blocker, and then we're still blocked. So then what do we do now?
According to our discussions with the Phabricator guys, for this first phase that would try to deprecate Bugzilla, Trello, Mingle, and RT, there's work that needs to be done, but there's nothing that looks like rocket science. It takes time, but not rocket science. The second part related to code review might be a bit more tricky, basically because our paradigm, the current way we organize code review, clashes a bit with the current paradigm that Phabricator has. But probably it's also a matter of, just discussing and seeing that. But at least the first part looks like more or less clear. Of course, there's also the interest. Reports to a Phabricator instance, but I don't know. It's
so yeah, there's some stuff. I mean, we definitely need to sort out, and we don't know yet exactly how. For example, migrating the data or the user accounts from Bugzilla and other tools. But on the other hand, what is great is that upstream developers are really responsive, are interested in our use cases, and are normally, when they're convinced that this is also something that more than just Wikimedia are interested in, are pretty quick in implementing it. And that makes us, I think, pretty happy so far.
Are you sharing screen?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, I don't know. If there's someone, I don't know if what I'm saying is.
Oh wait, I probably need to actually.
But this is your screen, yeah?
Yeah, but it's not actually sharing for some reason.
Okay. You want to be
Second, yeah. No, you're going to
desktop one.
No, that's correct. Then now it should be sharing this screen. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay. Great. So. Great. I'm thinking display mirroring probably makes more sense, but whatever. We'll figure it out.
I think let's try out this.
No, it's fine. So, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, sure, I'll just... Perfect. Right, so, how many of you guys have actually used the Phabricator instance that Kim set up? Well, somebody set it up. Essentially, the goal for you guys by the time you leave here today is so that you can actually use Phabricator without feeling like you're an idiot. So, come on, man. There we go. Let's see here. What do we start with? Let's take a look at Phabricator in a nutshell, because I guess some of you haven't actually used it. So let's take a look. What we have here is multiple tools. They're called applications here on the left side. You can always install more. You'll see show more applications, and you can always add more later on. My user is a regular user, so you don't see some of the more advanced features like the applications application, which allow you to manage applications. So we're going to take a run through of this from my perspective, which is going to be most of your perspectives. Differential is essentially the project management, task management tool. What's that?
Differential is like the Garrett.
Exactly. But not just Garrett. It's kind of like Bugzilla and Garrett combined. Because you can still put your bugs and tasks in there. Whereas diffusion is essentially the other half of Garrett. Sorry, not diffusion. I meant differential. Differential is the other half of that. So we'll start with. Oh yeah, it's true because they're all in the same place. I'm sorry.
Differential is code.
Differential has code review and the tasks.
No, manifest is tasks.
Oh my God. So when you leave here today, you'll know more about Phabricator than I do.
Basically, differential equals Garrett, manifest equals
Correct.
Bugzilla, diffusion equals Gitboard.
Yeah. So I'm very sorry. So differential is the code review, code management, code review type of thing. Manifest is where all your tasks and bugs go, and they get broken down into projects, severity, and there's a few other more refined ways you can break down tasks. So we'll start with manifest. What you see, by the way, on your homepage here is essentially manifest at a nutshell, what it believes are the important things that are related to you. So if you're a part of certain projects, you can have them appear here. If there are bugs that need to be triaged, if there are unbreak now, which is essentially, what's the highest priority? Immediate priority in Bugzilla. They always show up here to everybody. Unbreak now means everyone should take a look at it. Unless you don't have access to a given project, for the most part, Unbreak now shows up to everybody, and that will appear here. So that's a really good way of getting everyone's attention, because the goal would be that at any given time, people are always going to be on Phabricator. So to see Unbreak now tasks on their homepage is a very quick and easy way to get someone's attention, and they can, get to resolving it right away. And you'd see here that this has an assignee. So you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about it, or you could go in and chime in and see if you can help. Now, back to manifest. As you can see, I have absolutely nothing because I'm not doing anything. But we could take a look at all tasks, and this gives us everything, including open and closed tasks. But let's take a look at open tasks. This will simplify things. So we can see now that we have a lot of bugs here that need triaging. That means they're completely unprioritized. And for the most part, this would be up to each individual team to figure out what the priority is for that team. And you'll see these little boxes underneath. These are projects. A task can be in a given project, and it's generally up to those projects and its members to determine what its severity is for that task. Now we'll go down, we'll see high priority tasks. So this has already been prioritized by this workboard testing group, but it has no one assigned to it. So given that this is a test task, I'm going to assign it to someone. So I can sit here and I can say, all right, I want to take this task, so I will assign it to myself. Now, at this point, I'm in charge of this task. Now, we can give it some dependencies, which works a little bit differently here than it does in Gerrit.
It's a task, so really
Yeah, well, anyhow, it's just that the dependencies here will work simultaneously. No, you know what? Let's just stick with Bugzilla for now. So we'll look at all tasks, and we'll find some other kind of test task. Here's a test. Perfect. We'll save this dependency, and bam. Now we know that this task, before anything else gets finalized, it does depend on something else. So this is a good way of having not just tasks in your project, but also depending on tasks on other projects. And this happens frequently for us, where we need to get something done in core before we can submit something that works in our flow project. And simultaneously, you can also break down this task by creating subtasks. So we'll create a subtask A, stop, and it's assigned to me. But I need to get some other people involved. So Kim, and I'm going to assign him. But this is a bit of a lower task. But this goes into a non-technical test project. We need some other people to get involved with this task. So we'll get that project assigned to it as well. And people from that project will also get notified that a task has been created for their project. Now, points here, it's an additional application. So if your team does Agile, then you can assign a given points to a project. So let's just say this is a 3-point task. Now, ideally, you should add a description, but I'm lazy, so I won't. Now, you'll see here that this tells us that we're on a subtask right now. And dependent tasks, if we go back up, now we've actually created more dependencies.
So, side note, while we're talking about the description, unlike Bugzilla, Phabricator lets you edit the description later, which is convenient because either if someone didn't add a description originally, or you realize the original description was a little bit off, you can improve it as time goes on.
Right. Not just that, but let's talk about Gerrit for a second and the way that handles your commit messages. You can actually have a huge, giant description of your stuff in Phabricator without having to specifically mention it in your commit. And because they're kind of tied together, you can always follow that commit message back into Phabricator to get the full details and the full conversation history. So yeah, you'll see that it's not really necessarily listed as a subtask here, but it's actually just another dependency, which is the way they handle creating subtasks.
Could you explain a bit the commit message part again? It was way too fast for me. So commit now, and how does the commit know to which task it goes?
It assigns Phabricator ID to the commit.
Yeah.
I'll explain that when we get to the Arcanist and differential part.
Okay.
But this is just basically kind of creating tasks in a nutshell and how you can kind of run through them. So we've taken a look at projects. We've taken a look at creating tasks. Yeah, what's up?
Is there any way to like hide the Phabricator add subscriber Phabricator lines? It's hidden automatically when you get a few more comments.
Yeah, let's say like order changes.
So what we'll do now is I'll say I hate this.
Basically, like when you disable emails that CCs are being added to Bugzilla.
CCs are being added in Bugzilla?
Like if I default.
Oh, yeah.
CCs.
Yeah, there's email preferences as well. It's pretty detailed. Like you can say, I don't care about subscribers.
If I remember correctly, it doesn't notify you when other people have been CC'd onto a given task.
You can define.
You can, okay. Generally, what it'll do is it'll actually notify you when something has actually changed on a given task. So if you've added a new, code to be reviewed, if you've added a new comment, the people who have been CC'd or assigned to the task will actually pop in. So You can actually CC without actually necessarily being involved in the task because it might somehow affect you. So we'll add Kim, and we'll submit. I won't be notified about this, nor will anyone else. Only Kim will get notified for this, if that solves your annoying email question. So I kind of like this concept of the way this is laid out. It's a lot more clear than it is in Bugzilla and in Garrett. They have a kind of a very old school way of rendering that, and this is much cleaner and simpler, and it really gives you a history of how this whole thing has played out, kind of at a very short level without having to read in depth all the comments and all the text. And that's just kind of the basics that I wanted to show you guys. Finally, you can always close this task, but ideally you would change the status as resolved and then submit, or you would do one of these. Just closing a task outright, I really don't recommend doing that unless it's clearly like, you know, a pointless task. But ideally, go through the change status and set it to what it accordingly is. You can add more statuses, but these are the basic default ones. Now, you can also assign this to multiple people, can you? No. You use projects for that. Let's say you as a...
You can.
It's not working for some reason.
Huh? You were too fast, probably.
No, look.
I'm not assigned to more people.
Yeah, no,
only one person owns that.
So you have your project to
Or you
manage that.
subtask for how you want to break it up.
Yeah. Now, the way I would envision this to happen for projects, random tasks here and there, it's fine to be set up, like assigned directly to a developer. But for a task that's quite large, which happens frequently like on the extensions level, for example, in core features, we'll have a very large task that could take multiple weeks to get done and multiple developers. Ideally, that should be assigned to someone in charge of a given sub-project within a project. So it could be the project manager, Scrum Master, or even a developer who wants to kind of oversee that whole task getting done. And then you would create the subtasks or dependencies according to that and assign those to each individual developer. So yeah, that's basically it as far as the general idea of tasks goes. There's not much to it. I like to think that it's a lot simpler and more straightforward than the way Bugzilla is set up. Do you guys have any questions or comments about how tasks go? What's up?
Tokens. What are they? What do they do? How are they useful?
I have no idea. That is some kind of a application, I believe.
It's a way for others to express feelings about specific tasks.
I'm gonna take a
Well, it's more useful in like differential, which is a quick review, I think. But you can use it.
No, I can perfectly see users. You know, in Bugzilla now you can vote +1. That's all what you can do. Here you can say if you love or hate an idea or whatever feelings you have about it.
Can you use them as like quasi-tags or searches? Like, can I search for all bugs that have pterodactyl?
I would highly doubt it, actually.
Not today.
Not yet. So in Bugzilla you can search for, like, for example, open tickets that have more than 20 votes.
Right.
And that's something that we might consider in the long run if we really want to give more attention to what people want. Yeah.
You'll see now there's been more changes, so this whole area has been hidden, and we're only showing a limited subset of responses here.
Let me just add a little detail. You can add images that you can actually see. You can click. So that's also different with Bugzilla, where you can.
This is what we don't want, right? You need to first download that image and then open it from your download. I don't know who did that to our current Bug tracker, but that really sucks.
Yeah, well.
XT JavaScript.
Yeah, this is.
So I guess this is also a security violation. I mean, it's great that it can do it, but we can't use it as that as such.
Why?
It's unsafe.
Well, we can see if they do mod type sniffing on the server side, then awesome, they can do that. Bugzilla just doesn't do that very well. So if they securely upload it and show it, awesome.
Okay.
Another thing about images, you can have mocks, which are, I think, should be used for designers. So instead of having like a Dropbox mock that you link from Bugzilla or whatever,
yeah,
you can specifically say like this mock. If you close the image, so you can see everything, you go up a little bit. If you see, go to edit folio mocks. Like basically, a mock is like a first-class object. So like you can say like mock like M4 is like how we want a flow board to look, and then like you can explicitly link it, and then you can just click that for one thing, and then mocks are versions, so you can say, well, we didn't really like that one, so we're going to change that, but the old version still stay there for history, and you can explicitly embed a mock into a comment. You can either link it or embed it into a comment.
Right. So you can see here an actual mock-up that's being thrown in. People comment on it. You can create subsequent revisions onto this, and you can again see this whole history of how this is kind of ended up the way it is now.
Hey, sorry, I had a question.
What's that?
So you have the dependencies there. Is there a quick way to find out the status of the dependencies? I mean, it's like, I mean, Bugzilla has has a line through it if it's missed.
This also has a line through it. Once you finish a task, it'll have a line through it. Until then, it appears like this.
Okay.
And given that a task is either open or closed, this doesn't tell you how that task has changed.
Yeah.
It only shows you whether or not the task itself is open or closed.
You can also see if you are using a board, you will also see in which column a task is.
So my next question is going back to the board. If you go back to the board view of this, is there an easy way to see? Well, it's this really complicated thing, but the 6 things it's based on, 4 of them are closed. So we're making good progress. Or do you have to kind of dive in and open each one to see the kind of state of the higher level task?
I think you need to dive in. Right?
You would essentially what you could do is you could find all the tasks by searching for them, and then you'd see which ones are open and closed. So I mean, we could go into all tasks and we'd find using this. I think the simple solution would just be, let's see here.
So can you explain the revision when you would?
Yeah, just something like, I don't know, changing the definition or something. So it's like, okay, so you got to prep the SQL change, and you've got to update current code, and you've got to make sure that consumers of it are all updated. So it's something that has like 4 or 5 dependent things.
Well, yeah.
It's not quite at the level of an actual sort of project core, but you just want to see, well, 4 of these 5 are done.
I understand what you mean.
We're making good progress. Just want to see
what you would do in that scenario is you would have a parent task, and then you would create subtasks on that. So each individual task would show that a certain other task depends on this one, but then once you go to that task, the parent task, you would see the list of this task depends on all of these, and you can see which ones have lines to them to see whether or not they've been done.
So but that's what you just did, right? You
Correct.
Okay.
So we can actually go and
It also has for
We filed a request upstream to actually do more or less what you want.
Alright. So you would go and view that sort of.
I'd go here.
Task,
we'd see this,
see how many have lines.
and
then
I could just close this task by changing the status to resolved or won't fix or invalid. And then once I submit that, it would appear. Like this.
Okay, so.
And that's it.
Start.
Now, this also appears in a Kanban board here. So it automatically places whether or not they're kind of in progress. And we could make this a little bit more complicated by adding more columns to this and individually assigning those accordingly. But for the most part, it's semi-automated, the way this kind of ends up here. and when it gets removed. I believe that's correct, right? Anyhow, that's entirely managed, right?
No, one of the limitations right now is that you can only have one workboard per project, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
But you can create as many projects as you want.
Correct. Yeah.
Project or the subproject?
No, not today. So today there's only one unit, which is a project, and what other people are doing out there is flow January, flow February, and and because you can add tasks as too many projects as you want, this is how you get it. But it's in the roadmap, at least, to have these different type of projects, like a sub-project or something, or a sprint project that depends on that more generic.
So, case in point, we have our current iteration, and then we have our backlog. Let's say MediaWiki UI instead. This is how we're currently doing it on the Flow team. We have our Trello board, and this is what's happening right now. This is what we're expected to be working on or getting done in this current sprint. And we ideally have these exact same columns. But we also have MediaWiki UI board, and a lot of this stuff directly correlates to things we need to get done. But unfortunately, they're entirely separate boards, and we can't link them in any way. However, with Phabricator, what you would do is this task would be in multiple projects. One project would be Flow, the other project would be MediaWiki UI. And then we could individually place this task wherever it needs to be on those projects, Kanban boards. It's highly unlikely that a given project needs to have more than one board. If it does, there should be a way to kind of like streamline your process.
Well, so the way that we do it on the mobile web team is that we have for every iteration that we have a board, and it's really nice because then you can kind of go back and look at past iterations and see what was complete in that iteration. Plus, it gives us the opportunity to start planning for the next iteration, but also in a board kind of state. So that's wonderful, especially if you have different levels of statuses for cards.
Okay.
You have a card that is just a brainstorm that needs a deeper look before it's going to be ready for development, for instance. At least that's how we do it. So for us, having multiple boards is actually really valuable. We're experimenting. We've been using Mingle for a really long time. We're experimenting with Trello now. Even on Trello, we maintain, I think, 3 or 4 different boards. We have the backlog where we do separate prioritization from Zilla. We have a current iteration board and a future iteration board.
Okay.
Yeah, and like Kim said, you can do that. The only thing is, instead of calling it a board, you just call it a project, and then there's one board per project. So you just have like mobile web January project.
So I think the summary of the situation is now Phabricator is not as nice as these applications that commercially focus only on that.
Right.
So, but still you could technically do all those things, but it would require like more work from your side, probably.
Well, I mean, the downside in my mind, if we were to migrate to Phabricator now, is that we're going to have however many teams there are creating however many projects they need to per sprint, and it seems like it's going to be incredibly disorganized. And it seems like conceptually a bit of a perversion concept of the project.
Yeah, no, but this is why there's a task upstream where they have already streamlined down the type of projects they want to create. There's a specific one for sprint, for instance.
Yeah.
What we don't know and nobody knows is whether this is going to be done next month, at the end of the year, and we also don't know when we are going to be ready to invite you to move to Phabricator.
Right.
So, but
well, that
at some point it will be solved, but we don't know when and exactly in which order,
So is there any way to get any visibility into when these things might get done? Or, I mean, is it just totally up in the air? I mean, for me, like that would affect how I approach.
Can you go to secure Phabricator.com?
Yeah.
I'll show you the board that we have for Wikimedia specific tasks. Upstream have been discussing the RFC. They have been already fixing a couple of things just because we were discussing about them. I said, oh, nobody asked about this before, but yeah, why not? It makes sense.
That's very good.
This is our current board on Phabricator's Phabricator.
Yeah, if you can look at the board, actually.
Oh, the Kanban board. Yeah, where is it?
Work orders. It's kind of confusing because work orders, there's only one.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
So why is it plural if there's only one?
That's a good question.
Okay, so you can just turn on into the writers. So as you can see, we have these columns. Feedback welcome means that please comment on those tasks. We are telling upstream, please comment on these. We have identified the potential blockers, and like the first one is about the security namespace, where everything that goes there is really secret and nobody without permissions can access there. The second one is well, it's just for details. Some of the applications are visible to registered users, not for everybody. That is just something that helps them. And then the third one is about users being able to follow tasks via email, which is something for RT. These are the, and then we have all the tasks. And actually, the one about, well, I don't know. But basically,
The multiple boards.
multiple boards.
Is that the one you were talking about? This one?
Hey, yes. There we go. So you see. Yeah. So you can
there's,
trust.
Look at this.
Lots of-
Step right there. Like, so that's the main developer of Phabricator, right? Like, he comes in and actually provides useful commentary.
And
Like,
not just here, but also on our instance of Phabricator.
And Psychorapho and IRC.
Yeah.
Right. Dude's awesome.
Is there only one of him, or is there a whole team?
We're not sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, to like go back to your concern about having multiple projects, it won't be disorganized. It might seem that way, that yeah, I'm creating a bunch of projects and I'm gonna have my main project and then an individual project sprint. Not every team does that, but if your team does, then it's not that bad because you're not frequently going into the giant projects page and looking at every single project. You'll typically look at a project, but then once you're done with your given sprint, you can kind of discard that project and not really ever look at it again. I think the way to go about that would probably just be to remove all the users from the project. Then you wouldn't really look at any notifications anymore, and it wouldn't appear in your list of tasks and projects. So once you're done with the sprint, that's probably the way of going about that.
Well, I think one thing that would probably get annoying about that is, it's nice to have a consistent URL for like your current work, or at least it is for us, having our own team and having stand-ups and things like that.
Right.
If the URL for your work board changes every few weeks or whatever, it just adds over.
It doesn't with Java. I thought they have like auto-generated like weird character URLs.
We like just started using Java, so actually.
So
Yeah. Like
So
ours is like Java.com/gibberish/verb.
Well, the gibberish I don't really care about as long as it's consistent. As long as it's always consistent.
But I think that's also for board.
So Arthur, my take on this is, if this is the type of problems we have, I'm super happy.
Yeah.
They're very like specific, detailed issues, and I mean, none of this stuff sounds like a blocker to actually using Phabricator.
No, for sure, and I just wanted to express that these are.
No, and they're entirely valid concerns to have and to express, and clearly there are, people working on your exact issues. Does anyone have any other questions about tasks?
Yeah, sure. So I was wondering two things. You can assign something to more than one person, it looks like, so
You can assign.
it looks like
You have to break down the task into subtasks and assign those to multiple people.
because it looks like the field looks like it's one of those things where you can have like a clapper and then add some users.
Yeah, it looks that way, but yeah, that's all it is.
Right. So that's probably good and bad because sometimes if it looks like 5 people are working on it, it's like, well, who the hell is actually working on it?
Right. So that's what the project is for. So in our case, we have our flow team, and we would all be members of that. And we know that the flow team in general is working on something, but we know that an individual user is going to develop is going to be on a given task.
When subscribers would be like other people who might be involved with
like CC.
Right. Now, regardless of whether or not I'm assigned to this task, you can also chime in and put your own code. Just because it's assigned to me doesn't prohibit you from doing anything. You can put a differential up, and it would appear here under your user. So you would appear as not the assignee, but you would appear as another author of this task.
Yeah, personally, I like the idea of always having like one assignee per task.
Yeah.
Trello lets you have like arbitrary number, which kind of annoys me because I feel like there's only one person who is responsible, and if you need to break it up, you can use subtasks.
Right. It makes sense. Some teams work in a very specific manner, and switching to Phabricator is going to require pretty much every team to overhaul the way they currently do things. But I'm convinced that it's a non-issue and that we can fairly easily get everyone to kind of adapt to the new ways of doing it. And the nice thing is that every team would be on the same footing. So there's been a few members of the community kind of switching from project to project, at the foundation. And you wouldn't have to learn something new switching a team. You would be doing the exact same thing you're already doing. So this is another step towards really streamlining everything at the foundation, as opposed to having every team doing their own thing. Because I have no idea what most of the other teams do apart from mobile.
Sorry, I had one other related question.
Sure.
Which is, in the board view, is it possible? I guess it would be an enhancement to show the sort of task number of things. So if you go back to the sort of board view, you just have a bunch of these things, and there's no you have to drill into each one to find out, oh, that's T185 or whatever.
You mean, I don't understand which question.
The work boards view, the columns, doesn't it? It shows,
If you go to the
title
column, yeah.
and then the.
Okay, the Kanban board. Okay.
So that the column headers have a small, in brackets, number of items in the column?
Oh yeah, that is weird.
You don't.
That's actually probably more of a bug than it is anything else. It looks like.
I'm sure somebody would complain if it did show it.
All right, well, I'll file this in enhancement. Because it's just useful. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time reading out the names of things.
Yeah, that's like.
Yeah, no, this is.
Work around from Trello on that.
This is a bug. It's the only time I've ever seen a task without its task number.
Yeah.
So it will get fixed.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, so this is fairly straightforward. Any other serious concerns or anything about tasks?
I would say let's move to the code review
Okay.
part, which is.
So let's get to differential. Are there any diffs up already?
I did a testing one.
Okay,
I think
so-
Christian has also done some.
So what we'll do here is we'll take a look at. This one was accepted. Except he reviewed it with a secondary user. So what happens here, this is a lot better than Garrett. This is where it really shines.
No, it's not.
I'll tell you in a second, and you'll hopefully kind of get to my point of view. Now, what happens with Garrett is that you're constantly essentially amending changes to a single patch. The way it works here is what you'll do is you'll create a local branch. So let's say you're at a certain point in your code, and then you branch that off to your new feature or your bug fix. You're going to do however many commits you need to do that. If it's 1 commit or 100 commits, it's irrelevant. Unlike in Garrett, where it's 1 commit squashed every time. You'll create your branch, you'll create your commits, and once you're done, you finally do something called arcdiff. That runs the Arcanist differential function, which ties it into your project's, your task's Arcanist page. The differential shows up. So your commit would contain T185, whatever the task is, and it would connect with Phabricator, figure out all the information it needs for that, and assign a differential for that specific task. So in this case, this doesn't actually have a task on it. I wonder if we have one that has one.
One of the cool things is, like, if someone uploads a Garrett thing or, a code review thing without saying which bug it's connected to, which happens sometimes on Garrett, this will allow you to add that later by saying edit manifest tasks. So you can kind of say, oh yeah, it wasn't mentioned in the commit message, but this actually fixes T123, which in Garrett, the only way you can do this is by adding a comment. But here you actually link it properly.
So here we'll adjust this, and we'll say edit manifest tasks. and I have this task assigned to me, why not? Let's just assign that one. So now we can see that this has tasks assigned to it. Normally, if you had a proper commit message that had the task number in it, it would automatically show up here. But like you said, you can always amend it later, like I just did. So
actually, what you say, you can also do the same thing in Gerrit.
You can,
but it's not actually a link; it's a comment. Yeah, but I mean, adding bugs to Gerrit change is just the same thing. You can just do that.
It's trivial.
After merge. After merge, yeah. Okay, after merge you can. That's true. But should you do it after merge? Yeah, if you forgot to say that you fixed a bug, but that did in fact fix a bug.
Yeah. Now you can do it not just here. You don't do it just here, but you can also do it on the actual commit. So later on, as you go down and you find that, oh, I screwed up this and I didn't have a task on this commit, you can actually specifically go into that commit and assign a task to it, which we can't do right now.
Oh, well, yes, you can.
You can?
Yeah, of course. A commit message. Just add the bug there, and it gets linked, and it gets also the status set.
So it's a bit more complex than that. The commit itself here has basically its own kind of page and state. So you can actually do quite a few other things there, such as auditing the code itself on a given commit. But I'll show you that in a sec.
Let me just comment one thing.
Sure.
From the point of view of the task, what is also useful is that you can have 7 differential revisions, and from the task you can see the title of each one. So compare this to the view from Bugzilla, where what you only have is messages from Gerrit telling you that you have a change in Gerrit. So
yeah,
it is a lot more informative to follow what's going on and what are the specific revisions that are coming from.
Isn't the subject of the change also shown in Bugzilla?
It is, but here you have basically a list in one place, and I guess it's also crossed out when it's merged, I guess.
Right.
And in Bugzilla you have to go through all the comments and find them.
Yeah, and there'd be multiple patches. You can tell which comments that one had.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we look at the task and see what it looks like on the task?
Yeah. So now you see differential revisions showing up here.
So it's like totally bidirectional.
Yeah. Everything is supposed to be bidirectional here. Now, in this case, this task has been accepted and is ready to land. So you could actually merge this in afterwards. You can, from the command line, you would do, what is it, arc diff creates the patch, and then there's another arc. No, is it arc-lan? Okay. No, arc patch would actually create a copy for that. So this is different. Arc patch is essentially what you would do to exactly create a copy of this on your local version. So that's how you would do it as a reviewer. If you wanted to test it specifically, instead of just looking at the code, instead of having to create this crazy checkout that Gerrit does.
But one thing that's a little bit different from Gerrit USD is that actually it basically cherry picks like D4 in this case onto whatever you're coming on. So I think by default it might try to put it on the master, but I think you can actually chain them together in a different order from how it was done on the
If you do arc patch D4, it would create its own branch of D4. It wouldn't apply it onto what you're working on right now. It would create an independent branch on which this exists in its exact current state.
Oh, well, that can't be true because you can upload diffs that don't have no parent information, so that just cannot work. In my experience with it is...
It would have a Git history?
Well, you can upload a GIF through the web UI, which is just a plain diff that has no knowledge of the parent whatsoever, so it cannot be true.
In that situation, which I haven't done...
I think it probably uses master as a parent. Yeah, so actually for me, it put it in master as well.
But if you did a diff with a given point in history...
It was just a plain old diff copy paste.
But there's always a parent, because that's part of the metadata of the kernel. So I think if you do
it applies it to your working copy.
Hang on, did you do a diff while you were already on master or on a separate branch?
No, I mean a diff that you, for example, write from.
Right.
And then you upload that. That diff doesn't contain any master information, so Phabricator cannot know But it has to, because there's metadata in the differential that says what the parent is, so it must be using something. Okay.
Okay, so clearly we have something else to look at, which is applying diffs directly in Phabricator.
There's like a form for it.
I discussed this earlier with Kim, and there is some interest in using it. It should be used sparingly. Ideally, people should be using Arc to do their patches. But in a situation where that does happen, I would imagine, and I'm not, I have no experience with it, that it would use master at that point if there is no history for a given commit. Now, when you patch it, does it apply directly onto master? Maybe, but what it will end up doing is it will create a branch based on where you are, and then it will apply it on top.
In any case, for the context of this session, and considering that there's so many people that are seeing this for the first time, maybe it's good to go through the regular Phabricator process, and then we can look at exceptions or other things we want to do.
Right. So, as far as this goes, that's kind of code reviewing, creating a task and stuff is pretty straightforward. What you would do in this scenario is you could specifically comment on line. This stuff works pretty much the exact same as Gerrit, except that it's actually a lot better. The interface is cleaner, it's nicer. You can create like a whole thread here. It's pretty much the same as how the code review works in Gerrit, except
you don't have to guess what the formatting is because it uses like the same formatting everywhere else. Like
right.
They have Phabricator has like a custom formatting language called a remarkup. It's kind of like Markdown and kind of like wiki syntax, so that's a little annoying. But the good part is it's exactly the same in like all the applications. So same in code review, same in manifest, same in everywhere.
And then the good thing is that there's a toolbox, so you don't need to cut them on.
So let's.
You can probably attach an image now showing exactly what that line is causing or something like that.
Yeah, you can. And again, that's all like the exact same little editor here. You have the exact same thing. You can even drop in a meme if you wanted to. So you'll see here it says not submitted yet. You can do all the commenting you want, whatever the hell you want. And this is actually a little weird. It's happened to me in the past where I'll write a bunch of comments in line and then forget to actually submit them. So don't forget to do that. However, if I were to close this and come back to it, it saves everything in the history there. So it's not lost if anything ever happens. If you're not done commenting, you can always come back later and add your information. What's that?
Is that browser storage, or is it actually storing temporary comments?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure. I think it's stored on the server, but I have no way of knowing. I've never actually looked into it.
You can test it by opening a different browser, but I would bet it's on the server.
Yeah, I think stuff like this is probably server. This I'm not too sure about.
That's correct.
So those of you with long commutes and the train, I can tell you that it's a whole different experience.
Well, Gerrit actually does the same thing.
Well, at least compared to Brazil.
So now let's actually do something with this commit. This diff rather. I can straight up accept it, even though it's already been accepted. Let's fuck around with it a bit. Let's say we need to make some changes. Now this is great because someone could have already accepted this, but it hasn't automatically landed. You have to do that afterwards. So this allows you to, in Gerrit right now, once you +2 something, it generally goes in automatically. Is that correct for every project?
No.
Not every project is like that? Okay. So in this case, it doesn't do that. There is no automatic sending in. So people could accept this, and then eventually someone would come along and say, no, wait, don't submit it. If you try to submit a patch that hasn't been accepted, Arc will warn you from the command line, and then you could create more specific hooks that actually actively prevent you from being able to submit something.
One thing we really need to figure out is exactly how Jenkins would fit into the workflow. So for example, we might keep using the thing where like on the projects that do use Jenkins, usually we +2 it automatically submits it. So we could, in theory, do the same thing, and Jenkins would automatically land it for us. So that's to be determined.
Yeah, we ended up creating a bot that kind of gave us all this information that whatever happens in Phabricator, there is a whole series of event hooks that you could bind into and create your own custom scripts for Phabricator. So you could easily tie Jenkins in using a simple PHP script that does that. So in this case, now like we've created a comment, we'll submit it, and now you'll see that it's red, it needs revision. And I've been added to the reviewers. Even though I wasn't on this list before, I've now been added because I chimed in. You can also commandeer this revision. This happens in some scenarios where, for any reason, a given user might need to take control of a revision, whether that user is gone, the user is left, you want to finish the work that he started, or simply that you want to land it. So the guy could have done all the work, but he's gone, and now you want to land it right now. Or you can get other people to chime in with reviewers or CCs. And that's it. So we'll accept this, and looks great. We're done. Now it's green. This can actually go and be landed once you do arc land.
Do we really need to commandeer to land it?
No. If you do an arc land from the command line, it should automatically assign it to you, given diff. But I'm not 100% sure.
In the dropdown, if I resign as a reviewer, is my review still up there? Because
your review is still up there.
Great, because that's one problem with Garrett that some people have, that want to clean their list of things, and yeah.
Your history would still stay there, but you would no longer appear in that list of reviewers. And this happens, like, for example, I'll make a ticket, or rather, I'll make a diff in Garrett, and I'll assign like 10 people to it. And I'm always wondering when any of these people will ever chime in, and for the most part, if they have nothing to say about something, they will resign as a reviewer and let someone else do the reviewing on that piece of work, so that it doesn't bug them. Because once they'll get to their homepage, like same problem, you have a giant list of things to review. You don't necessarily want that. Just go through and clean them out. And also to avoid email spam, clearly. So that's basically it. Here you see that lint wasn't actually run for this. Arc automatically runs linting based on whatever rules you set. And right now, this is a bit of an issue for us because frequently people, the first thing they do when we have a patch go up is we look for not actual issues with the code, but whether or not someone's using tabs instead of spaces, they're putting the wrong space in the wrong spot, and they comment about all these things. Having the linting automatically run with Arc prevents you from actually being able to put up the patch until you fix those syntax, or rather code styling issues, which is nice.
We already have that with Jenkins
Yeah, but the difference is
that runs after.
The difference is whether or not you're spamming your reviewers because Jenkins is doing it on the server, or whether or not you can do it on the client and private.
Precisely.
I mean, we have to do it on the server.
I know, but the question is, are you running it on stuff that already passed, or you're running on stuff that probably did pass, but they didn't know?
Are you able to override its refusal to post?
You can, and what will happen is up top, lint here, it says lint skipped, and unit testing, unit test skipped. If it's passed, it will show a little checkbox and it'll say it passed, it passed.
Yeah, because one thing that we have in our workflow fairly commonly is if I assign a bug to someone, the first thing they will do is write a failing test for it, and they will submit a commit that just has that test that goes like, look, this is why it's broken. And obviously that commit will get immediately downvoted because it's test failed, right? And then eventually someone will amend the commit where it gets into a shape where the test is still there, but now the code is such that it's actually passing, and then
you can force it through, but it's all like carefully logged. For example, it says skip there, and like there's another thing called like blocking reviewers where you can have a change that has to be reviewed by a particular person. So like we might be able to use that with Jenkins bot as a blocking reviewer, but then you can still remove a blocking reviewer, but then of course that's the log that you did that. So that, and you can explicitly say like who removed the blocking reviewer.
So we got 20 minutes left, so we should probably kind of rapidly go through the rest of these things. Another important thing is you don't have to go through this menu to CC people. I could just put Kim. What's your username?
QJ.
Oh, QJ. Unfortunately, it's not showing up, actually. It's weird.
You can see it in the preview if you scroll down.
Oh yeah, it's working, okay. So once I submit this, suddenly, you'll appear up top as a subscriber. instantly. So you can easily spam your friends. It's pretty good. So that's essentially code reviewing in a nutshell. If I had set up Arc, then I would show you the command line and how simple it is. But for the most part, it's as simple as making your commits in your branch, Arc diff, it goes up, someone reviews it and approves it or not, and then you can Arc land it. It's actually a very straightforward and simple process. What you would do in the case of someone not approving your code is you would actually create subsequent commits on top of that. And then you would do arc diff again, and it would simply update your diff with the new set of commits. You're not limited to one commit. You can have as many commits as you want in a diff. The diff itself will show up as just your files. It won't show you each individual commit here in the list of files. There's a way to get it, I think, but you might have to just arc patch it to see it.
You can see the local commits like on the interface. If you scroll down, right? Yeah, it go up just a tiny bit.
Yeah, there it is. But this is just the diffs. It's not the commit history.
There's a view where it will show you like the local commits. Might only be like before the acceptor or something. But there's a way you can see the local commits, but it doesn't let you individually view them. You can see what the commit hash was, but you can't like individually view them.
Okay. So let's just say you have 10 commits in this given diff. And then someone says, no, I don't approve this. What you would do after that is you would actually create more commits on top with the appropriate message to say, okay, addressing whatever concern. Once that's all gone through and someone's accepted it, it's now your choice to squash those commits accordingly. This is a better use of Git. Garrett is kind of forcing you to automatically squash things in a way that doesn't necessarily make sense. Why not?
Yeah, you can create your own feature branch and Garrett.
Right.
Just work on that. No one forces you to squash.
True, but it becomes
review by commit.
Right.
But why shouldn't be one commit on top of the other, just like in a branch? You can even have branches in Garrett.
Okay. But in this case, you can work directly, essentially, off of a given branch by creating your own. Well, you would create a branch locally instead of remotely. Create whatever commits you want, and then once you actually have your review approved, all of that stuff would go in one fell swoop. In one merge, you would have 10 commits, if that's what you want. What's that?
Is that a merge for them?
I think it's
you have to manually rebase it before it goes in.
I think it's configurable like how it lands it. Whether or not it uses cherry picking or squashing or.
I believe by default it tries to just merge automatically. And if it fails.
That depends on what kind of repository you have. So for Git, it does one thing. For
okay.
SVN, it does another thing. So, but that changes, but it can be configured.
Okay.
It could be nice if we could do no password merges for this stuff too, at least for multi-commit changes.
Yeah, the issue somehow is that the local user that lands it can always override it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well,
one can set defaults. But locally, the user has to be nice and
right.
override
it. It would be nice if at least for multi-commit changes we could do NoFF because then Git by cycle won't get stuck on weird garbage commits in the middle. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think for the most part that kind of solves the issues with related
for the
diffs.
local commit thing, that can be like for a project convention. If like the project decides they don't really like having more than one commit for differential, you're able to. I don't know why it's not showing up there, but there's a view where it shows the local commits. So if you decide like our project doesn't want more than one commit for differential, you can just make a project-wide convention and just not accept it if they do that.
You know what? It's actually. I wonder if it's because
try
this
doing
is,
one that's not accepted.
it might be because this wasn't a commit. It might have just been submitted using the interface. That's possible, right?
No. Try like a different differential, or maybe it's only on. Try a different one. Cause I definitely remember seeing local commits.
Something that I miss is real exercises of real patches and real reviews, because we are getting many weird cases also because we are testing things.
Yeah, there it is, local commits. So it showed up here. Yeah, I think because that one was actually put into the web interface. So here's a single actual commit. with all the information. And each individual diff, if you were to view them, you'd see its local commit history. And so you can keep adding to this and see whatever the heck happened. This makes for a bit of a kind of a cleaner history when you're creating these patches, because you know specifically which commits were to address which concerns. And if there were 3 reviewers making various concerns on a given diff, I could address those individually on each commit. And then finally, once it gets reviewed and approved at the end, I would simply squash those commits into the top one. And if this needs to go into multiple commits, if that makes more sense, then you could do that. But for the most part, this would be a nice and simple way of doing it. Now, there might be some scenarios where you might want to commit things into commits simply because you need support for something first before you disable it afterwards. But regardless, whatever scenario it is, you can choose to have one single commit, or you can have multiple commits. And that's how this works out. I'm going to quickly run through a few other things here. Auditing. This is a place where you can essentially go through recent commits, and you can audit a code. So what we'll do is we're going to go, auditing is basically the whole view of past audits and current audits. What we'll do is we're going to go into Diffusion, which is a repository browser, and we're going to go take a look at, let's see, Flow has no commits. Let's go into MediaWiki. Actually, is there a test for it so we can fuck around?
You can use mine if you want.
Which one?
Flash and test.
This one?
Yeah.
Now you'll see all these repositories have their own call sign. You'll notice they appear in the URL here. So in fact, if you see any commits, all the commits can be referenced using this. So it'd be R for revision, and then which repository, I don't know what it is, and then the call sign for that repository. Usually they're briefer, and then the actual hash for the commit. So this is great because you can actually reference these commits, so you can get a link to this page directly without having to copy and paste the URL. So you could just put it in a comment and say, hey, take a look at R whatever, 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 and that's how you get this link. But what we'll do is we'll take a look at recent commits. So we see this is the commit that came up. Let's take a look at what he did. Now, here, something happened. I'm going to raise a concern with this because Matt. So I'll submit this, and suddenly he will get a notification, and I'm now added to the list of auditors for this commit. And usually you'll do this if you found out that this commit specifically broke something. So, for example, today we spent a bunch of time trying to figure out who broke what and at which commit. In Gerrit and Bugzilla, this is a really weird system. You'd have to find the old bug and then submit a comment and saying, but people don't typically do that. You don't typically go back to the closed bug and say, hey, your fix for this broke this and this. You'd probably just contact the person directly, generally speaking. Whereas this tells you to actually do that in an entirely different context. That task is closed. That diffusion revision is closed. It's fine. But instead, what you do is you go to specifically the task itself, and you raise a concern there. Then you can start a new dialogue about what happened with this task and whether or not you fixed it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just fix something. Like if it's a serious critical bug, I'll quickly figure out which task busted it, make the fix, commit it, and then I'll go back and I'll do raise concern, and then immediately accept commit with a link to the new patch that I put in. This actually gives you like a history in the auditing of what broke and what didn't. So it's nice to have this history. You could just raise a concern and basically say, can you fix this because you broke this and this thing? Or simply that you don't like something that was done in it and find a solution to it. And of course, you can always resign from the audit, as you could with the reviews as well. Now, this has something that ties into it called herald rules. Herald rules allow you to essentially specify rules that say, when someone does this and this action, let me know. So you can actually automatically audit code after it's been committed. So you might not necessarily say, yeah, please let me be on any differential anytime this happens. But you could say, look, any code that ever goes in that's JavaScript, automatically audit it and let me know. So it's not that it's going to say concern raised. What's going to happen is that you will automatically be, as soon as that commit gets merged, you will automatically say, oh, there was a Herald rule. Let's assign Shiar to the auditors of this commit. And I'll get an email saying, this person just merged in this commit and it matched your Herald rules. Go take a look at it. And at that point, you can just accept it or resign, whatever the heck you want. That's if you really want to look out for a certain section of code. So for example, I would personally have a Herald rule for the JavaScript for Flow. So other people could commit code and have it approved, but then later on I could take a look and just verify it, which means I don't necessarily need to be involved in the review process, but once something's actually been accepted and it's gone in, I could just take like a quick glance and be like, all right, it looks okay. I don't need to do anything about it. Yes?
In the general case, like in Steven's use case, like he has a Garrett thing, which anything that touches any internationalization file,
yeah,
he gets a notification, right?
He would do that exact same thing. He would have a Herald rule for any of the internationalization files, and then you would immediately be assigned to the auditors. And I'm
pre-commit, right?
Yeah, I think so.
For
You
this.
can get added to the
So-
differential too, right?
Yes, so you can also have the exact same Herald rule, and instead of having it happen for the auditing, you can have it for the differentials. However, that's not to say that you have to approve it.
They're just separate things.
Yeah, so you would appear on the list of differential reviewers, but whether or not you approve it or not doesn't have anything. It just adds you to the list of reviewers. Someone else could approve it, and it could get landed.
Yeah, that's what's happening now too.
Okay, so
And you
then,
can also create a rule to define you as a blocker of anything that is fit within a type of search. Which is not only a repository or something, like, as he says, any JavaScript code, any regular expression, I want to be there.
Yeah, but that should probably be not used as much because it can be kind of annoying.
Yeah, but just telling the possibilities.
Yeah.
We should really wrap up.
Yeah.
Because
let's, I guess, so has anyone actually been actively using Phabricator?
I'm trying to
So-
use
so-
this instance, but
so
does
what-
anyone here know who runs the labs instance for this? Because
everybody.
I would like to get access to it so that I can fix
You can do that.
host repositories, because
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like anyone has succeeded in creating a host repository yet.
Right.
Yeah, even Matt's experimentation.
It used to be Chad.
Okay.
I can't even find the right interface on labs to determine who owns it, so I hope it's.
we can look at it now.
Okay.
All right, sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I have a list of a bunch of things that I want to test in combination with my host repository, all sorts of weird use cases with nested repositories and rebases and dependent commits and changing it.
Define a nested repository.
No, really, we need. The session starting in 4 minutes.
All right. Does anyone have any serious concerns or questions, like things that you feel this doesn't meet your expectations?
Can I just ask? Is anybody interested in another session more advanced on a specific area?
An actual prepared one?
Which would be? I mean, we have time, and not now, but later, tomorrow, after tomorrow.
Maybe much later, so people have time to play with it and be prepared.
Sunday.
We can do a Hangouts on air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, another hour and a half on Sunday, and maybe it looks. Maybe there's one area where you can focus on code review. I also would like to know who's interested in looking at this day one plan specifically, which is all about the tasks, boards, etc. Yeah. So maybe we can have 2 different sessions. Okay. I will propose one about the day one, and then
maybe we could do something that's more hands-on, getting people actually to install Arc and.
Yeah, I would say one for these day one tasks, another one for code review, all the way.
Yeah, that sounds good, actually.
Okay. So thank you very much.
I wish I had actually prepared for it, though.
This was already.
I'm not sure how useful it was, but